So, what is success? Why some of us do and achieve more and others achieve less? How one defines more and less? What are those drivers, the inner motivation to do or not to do things? Why some of us are perfectly happy with whatever we have and others strive for more and more and more? So what is the formula of success? So I Googled. Okay, so to be successful, you gotta work hard, be dedicated, fail. I searched some more. So you gotta be passionate, have that purpose in life, be committed, be able to set goals. And then I came across this, successful people raising from failures, some more celebrities raising from failures, and then I was urged to see the future so I can be successful. So basically, to sum up, you gotta be able to see the future, so you have that vision of how to change the world. You have to be passionate, so you can go through all the struggles and hardships. You gotta fail. The more the merrier, the harder the better, and probably some other things. But something doesn't seem right here. Something doesn't click. So let's talk about seeing the future, being that visionary. So you wake up, and you clearly know where you're going, and you just keep going and moving on, and one day you get there being you're successful. Not true. In fact, being driven by a single scenario is the worst thing you can do in the world of innovation. Because innovation is all about finding the right idea through multiple iterations, tests and trials, feedback analysis. For me personally, the hardest thing has always been to come up with that big story of how we're changing the world at our company. So we started with this small app that would teach you how to code on your mobile phone. And then it grew into a more interactive environment where you can actually code on your mobile and also interact with peers. Then, one step up, today it's a community of very active code learners that in addition to learning also develop all of their learning content. And tomorrow it might be something else, but the point here is you never know where you're headed in the very beginning. And we've always known that we're aiming for something really big, really global, yet defining it has been a challenge. Because defining the end goal takes time. The end definition is built slowly, and it's built with each accomplishment, and the more you move forward, the more puzzle pieces basically come together. Okay, now my favorite one. So it's not really I'm gonna get to X by doing this, but it's rather cyclical. And each of the loops is self-sufficient in itself. It has pretty much of every life ingredient in there. It has hope, support, passion, disappointment, fear. And it's all about how much you can and want to handle, and that basically defines how much you will be able to advance and go to the next level. Okay, failures. Be ready to fail. Accept failure. Every person who has seen great success has been through great failures. Well, that's bullshit. I mean, in the startup world, we promote the failure culture, and there is probably some rationale behind that, because if more people try, probably more are successful in the end. But as a result, we take failure as an end destination versus just as another experience in any process. Because failure, or things are not going right, just as normal as things are going right experiences, or nothing is really happening experiences, or days when you are creative, or days when you are procrastinating. So basically, it's all about moving to the next level, learning from the good and the bad, and even from nothing is really happening. Honestly, I don't think anyone who was after something big ever felt that they were failing or suffering. But we've all heard these stories. Walt Disney was fired due to lack of creativity. Madonna was posing nude for money prior to becoming famous. Steve Jobs was fired from a company that he founded. Honestly, I don't think any of those people were feeling that they were suffering. I think the reason these people succeeded was because they couldn't stand a chance of failure. They couldn't tolerate it. I came across Van Gogh's letter, generally his letters to his brother, and in particular, this one was when he was isolated in a French countryside, and that was the peak of his mental illness. Van Gogh, the most suffering artist of all times. Let's see what he writes about his living. So basically, he says, for me, working here or anywhere else is not any different. And that's the only sentence that he has in the letter. And then the rest of the letter, he goes on and on about colors, about proportions, about his next work, about the previous artworks. So basically, the only thing he has on his mind is how to reach the next level of mastery, how to advance, how to move forward. And then we probably make the failure stories up later on, because that's what we humans want. Emotional stories in general are better heard. Suffering and vulnerability trigger sympathy. And if everyone wants to hear a failure story, you probably make one up. And you keep telling it over and over again, and at some point you start believing in it yourself. I was interviewed a couple of months ago, and I was obviously asked my biggest failure question. And my mind was, what do I tell him? Okay, probably I gotta tell him about the fundraising, because you're supposed to be suffering then, right? Or maybe I tell him about the feature that we launched that got these negative user reviews. And I'm trying to come up with something really fake. Well, just because he asked. And secondly, you gotta have a failure story in order to be successful, right? So I can go on and on about stereotypes forever. But the point I'm trying to get at, if thinking big, failing, being passionate, work 100 hours a week, read 300 books a year, get trained to be a better leader or get trained to be a better negotiator, if all these things are not the drivers of success, then what is? What makes us want more? What makes sure we get there? So it's basically very simple. It's our desire to stand out that sets the bar. It's our ego that moves us from one level to another. So basically, it's me standing out that keeps me going. So the formula to success is pretty straightforward. If you're lucky enough, and if you have worked really hard to bring your potential in line with your ego, it's a success story. And it doesn't matter how big or small your success loop is. You feel successful, you feel accomplished. Yet, if the two are not in balance, we get a disaster. We get a social disaster when one's ego is greater than their potential. And we all know those people among our friends and colleagues that whine and complain and blame everyone and everything for not being successful. And then the third scenario is not any better either, because we also have those people among the friends and colleagues that we all think have a potential to achieve more, but for some reason their ego fails to push them up. And these are the people who always think they're not good enough for whatever they have. So basically, instead of focusing on stereotypes, which are destructive and disturbing, maybe we should focus more on bringing the two in balance and finding our own unique balancing point. Because achieving balance is much harder when you feel bad about not having that great idea of changing the world rather than setting up smaller goals and implementing those and moving forward. Achieving balance is harder when instead of finding your feet in life, you are focused on how unhappy you are in your current state. Achieving balance is much harder when you take failure as an end destination rather than failure is just another part of the process in anything you do. So basically, stereotypes, they don't let you be successful. I mean, they distract you from finding your own balance. And they produce errors, and the errors do not let you optimize your own unique software. So find your good ego, be in balance, be successful. Thank you.